Welcome, everybody, to today's episode. I'm excited to be joined by South Dakota author, historian, and all around storyteller, Bill Markley. You might know his work from books like Deadwood Deadman and Wild Bill Hickok and Buffalo Bill Cody, but what you might not know is the fascinating journey that led him here, from reenactments and film sets to the written page. So let's go ahead and dive in. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me here tonight.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Bill and I met at some book events in a couple of times in the past, and that's kind of how we got to get to know each other. I think first out the Fort Sisseton Festival is the first time
Right. Yes.
you were
Yeah.
doing a talk on the U.S. Dakota War, if I remember correctly, something
Right.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah. That was a fun event.
that was very fun. So let's just start at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your childhood was like?
Sure. And just to let you know, I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I've lived in South Dakota since 1976. I got a job with the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources, worked for them for 40 years. And let's see, I've been retired for almost 9 now from that. So live in Pierre here. And as I said, I'm originally from Pennsylvania. Grew up about 3 miles from Valley Forge on a small farm there, and so grew up with history. Really, I mean, with Valley Forge that close, we were always heading over there to various events, and yeah, things like you know sledding down the hills, and the Mad Anthony Wayne Monument, and just it was kind of like a second, I won't say a second home, but a place that we used to go to all the time. And on the farm, it was an old, our farm was an old family farm. And um, as time went on, I realized a lot of the implements I was using were actually antiques. So, and I guess I just grew up with, being immersed in history. So,
Cool. So were there any early signs that writing or, well, it sounds like history, we've heard a little bit about that, but were there early signs that writing and history might play a big role in your life later on?
um, no, as I said, I've always enjoyed history, and when I moved to South Dakota, then I immersed myself into local history here to learn what was, what was going on beforehand before Pierre emerged as the capital of the state. Um, and I guess is reading part of what you were getting
Yeah,
into? I
just
mean, how I
yeah,
got
just
started reading.
yeah,
Um,
reading and the idea of maybe
yeah,
I could do some writing.
yeah. As a kid, well, way back when, my mom was always reading to us kids as we grew up. When I was in fourth grade, I came down with rheumatic fever and I was bedridden for half a year, second floor of the farmhouse. And of course, back in the day, there were no TV sets or anything like that in anybody's room. So, one of the cool things is the kids from my class sent a box of books to me. And so I was allowed to open one book a day. So I spent all that time just immersed in all kinds of books, everything from Robinson Crusoe to, you know, um, King Arthur's Knights, the whole deal, the uh, uh, Last of the Mohegans, books of the West really enthralled me. My dad worked on a ranch in Colorado when he was a kid, and on the farm we raised horses also. We had quarter horses there, so that it was almost like a little bit of the West and the East, if you will,
Yeah.
my family. And then when I got to in I guess it was 10th grade, my 10th grade English teacher gave us an assignment to go someplace, sit down for a couple of hours, and write about everything that was going on. So I went out into the pasture, sat down under an old apple tree, and just wrote down everything that was happening, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feel of the wind. And as you can see, I've always remembered that. Got an A for the paper, but
Nice.
but it really gave me a sense of trying to describe what's going on around you. You know, don't leave any of the senses out as you write something down. And then I college, I went to Virginia Tech. I got a master's eventually in environmental engineering, and my major professor, uh, the the committee head of the committee, I turned in my draft manuscript for my master's thesis, and he gave it back to me and said, "This is all in passive voice. Make it active." And go, "Oh man, how am I going to do that?" But it forced me to write in active voice and make it more, I guess, appealing to the reader. So I've always tried to write active instead of passive. Sometimes you need a little bit of that passive, but always active. And so those two people really, as I think about it, affected my writing long term.
Cool. Were there any specific a book or books that kind of sparked your interest in, particularly in the past? Maybe some of
Yeah.
those you mentioned, or
Um, I don't know so much as a kid. I mean, I read, well, actually, I read any kind of history book I could, anything in the Revolution, Civil War, the West. Yes, anything, fiction, nonfiction. I don't know that one thing stands out above the rest, but there's definitely a lot of good historical writers out there.
sure, kind of a collection of various reading and experiences, I'm guessing.
Yes, yeah, I'd read anything.
Nice.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
of interest. I mean, yeah, adventure type stuff, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Very good. So, in moving on from there and heading into the writing part of things, when did you start writing more seriously?
Yeah, as I gave those examples from the past, but um, I started dabbling in keeping a daily journal. Didn't really pick up on that for a while. 1970, one of my cousins and I, uh, uh, we took a Volkswagen Bug
Yeah.
west from Pennsylvania. Um, it was in between my freshman year and starting a construction job. We had several weeks before I had to go to work. And so we just jumped in his bug and headed west. All we knew is we wanted to get to the West Coast. And along that trip, I kept a daily journal of our events, of what was going on. So fast forward a few years to that was 19, I guess not that many years. That was 1970. 1972, I was a senior at Virginia Tech, and my major professor got a grant from the National Science Foundation to go to Antarctica. And he asked me to go along as part of the field team. So I went along on that, and I kept a daily journal all the way down and back. Then when I graduated, I didn't have a job yet, and he said, "Do you want to go back to Antarctica to put together all the supplies and equipment for the next field season?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I went down for 4 months after that. I was on the ice for 4 months and traveled through the South Pacific, and so kept a journal through all that. And then as time went on, I thought, well, I'll just start keeping a daily journal when I came out to South Dakota. And so every day I would write down everything that happened. Uh, Keeping a journal, once you I would say once you do it for about 2 weeks, you become addicted to it, and you don't feel fulfilled until you've written down what happened that day at the end of the night. You'll wake up and say, "Okay, I'm going to do it." So for years, I kept a journal. My journal into 1989 then coincided with the film Dances with Wolves. I was asked if I wanted to be a part of the film. A good friend of mine, Terry Poole, he was a Lutheran pastor in Pierre here, and he moved down to Nebraska. he and I always talked about history and how much we enjoyed it. And he joined a reenactment group, the First Nebraska, down there. And so they were invited to be in the movie Dances with Wolves, which was filmed outside of Pierre here, the Civil War scenes. And so a couple of the guys couldn't make it. He and Terry called me and a couple other guys up and said, "Hey, you want to be in a movie?" I thought he was kidding, but it was true. And so uh, I was in the opening Civil War scenes, the scene where Fort Hayes, where the major sends Dunbar further west, and then the final scene where the cavalry is looking for the Lakota village in the Black Hills. So my journal just naturally progressed, day to day through the movie, and as time went on, I I thought, well, maybe I'll just clean up this part of my journal and maybe type it up, the part through Dances with Wolves, and see how it goes. And gave it to some friends to read, and they thought it was good. And so then at that point, I tried to. I'm probably melding some of your questions together
That's
here,
okay.
but
That's okay.
things don't, just
Yeah.
things just kind of flow along. There's no, I don't know, one thing starts and another stops with all this. But I started sending out to publishers the manuscript, and I get any kind of variety of messages back. I got a postcard back one time, just saying, no, we don't want it. Sometimes you don't hear anything at all back. And a lot of times people would say, oh, it's very nice, we like it. But, if you would have put it out as the movie was coming out, we could have gone with it, but now we're not going to do it. So I finally gave up trying to go with a traditional publisher, and I went with a self-publishing company, iuniverse.com, they're called. And so I published it with them, and I've sold it on my own, and I've sold probably close to 4,000 copies, I guess, over time. But again, it's just a copy of my journal through there. So fast forward a few years later, 2004 was the bicentennial of Lewis and Clark coming up the Missouri River. And I wrote a series of articles for the peer, one of the peer papers about Lewis and Clark coming up the river. Each week I put a segment together on that. And once that was done, then I thought, well, okay, these are all done. What should I do with it? Oh, I know, I can put them together in a book.
Mm.
So I did that. I put them all together in a book and self-published that one. And then right after 9/11, a couple weeks after 9/11, I took a bus trip from Pierre, a public bus from Pierre back to Virginia for a reunion back there, and started just writing about what was going on in the bus. And there was, if you've never rode the public bus, there's a lot of interesting characters on the bus. So I started writing about them and the adventures of trying to make my bus connections. The day I left, a Croatian cut the throat of a Greyhound bus driver, killing about 10 people on a bus in Tennessee. So it threw the whole bus system of the US out of whack, because everybody thought maybe it's another major attack on the country, because this is just a couple
Mm.
weeks after 9/11.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that was kind of crazy. But what's interesting is during that time period, everybody was very patriotic. We were looking out for each other. Didn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, what your background was. We were all Americans, and
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of a unique time period. So those first three books I self-published on my own, and I mean, you can do it. And so I talked about Dakota Epic. That's the Dances with Wolves journal that I talked about. And then up the Missouri River, that's the one I talked about. Lewis and Clark coming up the river. As far as the Pier Fort Pier area, that's where they had their run-in with the Brule Lakota there. Almost ended the expedition at that point.
Mm.
But and then American Pilgrim, that's my bus trip I was talking about
Oh,
across the
okay.
country. So then at that point, um, I'd had, okay, 3 books published. I started, I've joined an organization called Western Writers of America. And they were very helpful, and they still are helpful. And in fact, it's the only organization I actually am a member of. Uh, I started writing articles for their magazine that comes out. I started writing magazine articles for True West magazine and Wild West magazine and South Dakota magazine. And during that time period, uh, I did a lot of research on history. And when you research history, there it seems like there's always, just like if you have a brick wall, there's one brick missing from the wall that if you
Mm.
had that piece of information, you'd have a complete story. Well, I did a couple articles on Deadwood, and there was one on this character. Gee, I never asked how much time is this. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, we can go till 7:30.
Okay, I don't want to ramble forever.
Well, it's okay.
Uh,
I could, if once you feel like there's a natural break, I'll ask you some other questions, and you can do it that way too, or you
well,
can
I
just
don't know.
talk.
Well, maybe this is a natural break here. Anyway, I did this. There were some missing pieces to some of the stories, and I thought,
I knew we was going to war with China, so I've been prepared.
Oops,
I thought I was gonna have to go to war with
sorry.
niggas, but I've been waiting for this, China. And it's in the back too. I've been waiting for this shit, China.
so
Wow, sorry about that. Goodness sakes, that's the first time that's happened in 5 years for me.
I guess he was really excited about my presentation.
Yeah, really, it sounded like it. Let me
So
try and get rid of this.
did you get rid of him,
Yeah,
or did
I'm
he just come?
trying, I muted him, and then uh there's a button I can push to get rid of him. And now I'm trying to get, I don't know if you can see this, there's like a report thing I'm trying to uh get out. Can you see that on the screen or not on my
No,
screen?
I,
Okay, I'll just,
I'll just keep talking while you do your
okay,
thing if you
I'll try
want.
and try and get this set up.
So anyway, in all history, there's always like little facts that you wish, oh, gee, I wish I could have that. And I talked with a publisher, and he said, "Why don't you write a story about this?" And so that's how Deadwood Deadman came about. It's the only historical novel I've done. And what I do is I take uh, a week a week of time in Deadwood, August 1876. It's a week after Wild Bill was shot and killed, and I talk about all the incidents that happened in town. There were several um, uh, unsolved murders, and so I weave them together in a Old West whodunit murder mystery. So
Yeah.
so that was my historical novel. So that's really the first time that I had an actual publisher, other than me publishing myself, an outside publisher taking one of my books and stories and going with it. So that's the only novel that I've done to date. Um, so then, as I said, I was at a Western Writers convention, and I talked with one of the publishers, and it's kind of funny. I pitched an idea to her. It's kind of like speed dating. You get like 20 minutes to sit down with
Mhm.
the editor and talk to them, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's very nice. See you. Move along."
Mm.
But this one actually talked to me for a bit, and one of my friends, Fallon Cutsforth, and I, we we pitched an idea to take controversial stories, Old West controversial stories, and he tells one side of the story, and I tell the other side of the story, and then we give our sources and let the reader make up their own mind. And so so I pitched the idea to this editor, and she said, "Yes, I really like the idea." And so as we're talking, then she said to me, "How would you also like to do a series of books comparing Old West characters side by side, Bat Masterson to Wyatt Earp, and so forth. And I said, well, let me think about it. Yes. And so,
Mhm.
so I, so I got two book deals going on at the same time at that point.
Nice.
So that was crazy. You just never know what's going to happen. So the books that I first talked about, the controversial stories, the first one that came out is called Old West Showdown, and that's done pretty well. It's come out in, of course, all these books are ebooks, and it came out as paperback. This is the hardback version. And then we did a follow up to that called Standoff at High Noon with 10 More Stories that we take. So, for instance, the first story in the first book is the gunfight at the OK Corral, which was actually back behind the OK Corral. But my co-author Kellen, he takes the Earp side, and I take the Clanton McLowry side, and then we give our sources so the reader can make up their own minds, how they want to go. So we just go through a variety of stories: the Johnson County War, Calamity Jane, the reality versus the myth. Did Custer make bonehead moves at the Little Bighorn, or did Benteen disobey orders, and Reno, was he drunk?
Mhm.
So and then we throw in sources, and then we let the readers make up their own mind. The other series of books that I've done is started out with Wyatt Earp, Bat Masterson, and compared their lives side by side through time. And then the next book was Billy the Kid, Jesse James, their lives side by side. Then I did Geronimo and Sitting Bull, and that was probably, I would say, the most difficult book to do because the the Lakota culture is different than our culture. The Chiricahua Apache culture is different from our culture. And then both their cultures are totally different from each other. And then to explain that to people that may know nothing about any of it was for me. I mean, that's why I said it was difficult to do, but I think I did well with it. I all these books, these later books I'm talking about, I've won awards with them with the
Mhm.
Will Rogers Medallion Award. And the final book in the series was Wild Bill Hickok and Buffalo Bill Cody. And this was, of all the books I've done, this is probably the most fun book I did because these two
Mhm.
guys are real characters. And I won a gold uh, Will Rogers Medallion Award for that one.
Oh, nice.
So that's where I'm at right now currently.
Yeah, I have that.
Published.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, I'm done.
I was gonna say I got your Geronimo and Sitting Bull one, the second to last one you showed is very good. Yeah.
Thanks.
Getting ready for my next one, I think I'll get Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp, maybe give them a try. Very good. So basically, it sounds like with the Dances with Wolves journal, was that there must have been something at that point that you sparked an idea that I could turn this into a book, and then what was that kind of impetus or what got you to decide to publish versus just writing your journal?
Yeah. What I think part of it was showing it to other people and them saying,
Yeah.
"Yeah, this is pretty good." Plus, I I knew of only one other person that kept a partial journal during the filming. As far as I know, there's no other journals as to
Hmm.
what was going on behind the scenes. I mean, what were people thinking about? What were some of the crazy things that happened? I mean, the movie itself is just really the tip of the iceberg of everything that excuse me, that goes on behind the scenes. So
Sure. Awesome. Well, later on, someone's asking about your upcoming books, but I'm going to hit that later in another section. But let's go into your reenacting and film experience a little bit. And how did you? Was Dances with Wolves when your friend asked you if you wanted to be in the movie? Was that your first experience in historical reenactments?
yes, yeah, it was, and so it was full immersion. As I said, I've always enjoyed history, And so really getting into reenacting is kind of one step beyond reading about it. I mean, you kind of immerse yourself into it. I mean, you can never really recreate what people did in the past. I mean, you can get a sense of what it was like, but yeah, to put on the uniforms, and I started buying all my own. After I got into it, I thought this is great. So I, started buying the uniforms and guns and accoutrements and everything like that. And yeah, you can you know get rid of your retirement real easily by buying everything, because you got to buy the stuff for the correct time period. You can't use an Enfield musket during the Revolutionary War or anything like that. You
Right.
gotta keep the right equipment, the right clothing, and everything. So, yeah, got fully immersed during Dances with Wolves and loved it, and started reenacting after that. I got, um, as I said, the final scene in there was the the search for the Lakota village. So the first couple of scenes were all infantry, but then you switch to cavalry. You got to buy different types of uniforms and hats, and
Mm.
then everything else. I mean, the carbine and the saber,
Mm.
not to mention the saddle and all the tack and everything else that goes with it. So I got all that, and then I was invited to be in the movie Son of the Morning Star, which was Battle of the Little Bighorn movie made for TV, and was involved in that, and that was very cool to be in. It was very historically accurate. A lot of people have said, I mean, it was kind of, I don't know, really didn't go anywhere. It wasn't that big of a deal movie, but it was on TV once. Then after that, I was in the movie Far and Away, the at the end the Oklahoma land rush scene, which was actually filmed at Prairie Creek, Montana, because because
Oh,
they couldn't find a good wide open area down in Oklahoma to film it, so they filmed it up in Montana. But
uh,
but for the land rush scene, there was over 1,000 riders and 250 wagons. And when they shot the cannon off, we were all supposed to take off
mhm.
at a gallop, and I survived that.
Uh,
There was dust going up every which way, and you couldn't see who was coming at you or where. I mean, they had a lot of wrecks during that deal, and one guy was flown out helicopter with a punctured lung, but he turned
Geez.
out to be okay. So anyway, so that was exciting. And
Yeah.
then I was in Gettysburg, that Ted Turner movie, and that was kind of fun. Did Pickett's Charge. Both sides did, the Confederate side and did the Union side. So I can say I was shooting at myself.
You had to buy two different uniforms and all that again, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
what was pretty good with when you do Civil War, it's pretty good. All you gotta do is really switch coats and
Okay.
hats. The gray for the blue, and back and forth. And you can take your belt where it says U.S. and turn it upside down, which they did back in the day. And upside down, it was it Southern Nation or something like that. It
Oh,
spells differently. So yeah, you can get by that way. So
huh.
and finally, I did Crazy Horse. It was a made for TV movie, the death of Crazy Horse, and that was filmed out in the southern Black Hills at the Wild Horse Sanctuary there. So that's pretty much my major movie experience, kind of background.
What was the land rush scene one of your most memorable as an extra, or was there another one that stands out from all the different movies?
I don't know that one. They're all different. I don't know that
Yeah.
that stands out. I mean, Dances with Wolves is probably. I mean, I think the other reenactors and we all got spoiled because Dances with Wolves was, I think, in the movie world was very unique. Kevin Costner was a very personable guy. I mean, he'd come around and talk with us, and
Oh,
the reenactors, if there was something that wasn't historically accurate, they'd mention it to him, and he would change it to make it historically accurate.
oh,
Case in point, if you go back and you look at it, where the Union has captured the Confederates, they're marching them through this cornfield, and the cornfield was planted just for the movie, by the way, which is kind of funny.
yeah.
But originally, the TV producers were going to have the Yankees carrying all the Confederates' muskets, but the reenactors said that's not how they did it in those days. What they did was they took away their cartridge pouch and cap pouch, and they'd have them carry their musket inverted with the stock pointing up in the air, holding it in front as they march them out. Because I mean, carrying those muskets, I mean, they're heavy. If you got like 4 or 5 of them in your arms, so they would just make the men carry their own muskets, again with the butt up in the air. And so that's how they showed it in the movie. They did it historically accurate like that. So
Cool. Very cool. That's interesting. How does participating in these reenactments in different films and stuff, does that inform your writing process, or did it affect it?
I think so, especially for instance, like in Dead with Deadman, the novel. I think that, again, what's the heft of a particular weapon? I mean, what's it feel like to wear the clothing? And I think I always kept that in the back of my mind as I was doing that. And I think it is in the back of my mind whenever I do any of this writing. I mean, they didn't have the comforts that we have today. Of course, they didn't realize they didn't have the comforts at the time. They thought, maybe 100 years from now, they'll think that we were living a very rustic life. Who knows?
Mm. Hmm. So, has being in front of the camera changed how you visualize scenes that you're writing about? You've participated in these things?
Yeah, that's a good question. And maybe it has, but I can't really say consciously it really has affected me at all. I think what affects me the most is when I write something, I go back and I look at it and I look at it again, and I try to figure out, does first of all, does it make sense, from my brain to your brain? Am I giving you, the correct facts and everything? And then how can I present it in a way that makes you want to continue to read on? I mean, how many books have we all read that, you start out and, oh boy, great first chapter, and then all of a sudden it starts letting down steam and starts getting boring and dragging on. And you don't want to do that. You want to keep it lively and people's interest going on.
Exactly, sure. So when you write about all these famous or these Western figures, how do you decide who to write about or what to write? Is it the first series were you told by the publisher, I want these 2 guys and these 2 and these 2, or did you decide that?
No, it kind of evolved. For instance, in the Legendary West series, the first 2, they said, well, we want you to do Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp. We want you to do Billy the Kid, Jesse James. And I said, yeah, fine, okay. But then after that, then I said, hey, how about if we do Geronimo and Sitting Bull? And how about if we do Wild Bill and Buffalo Bill? And so they went with those 2. And then I was going to do a 5th one, but of Calamity Jane and Annie Oakley. I think they would have been interesting to compare, but
Yeah.
at that point, things kind of fell apart with that publisher, so kind
Okay.
of moved on.
Sure. So then any other of the books that you co-wrote with the other guy about 2 contrasting views, do you come up with those ideas and
Oh, yeah,
fit-
we came up with all those ideas. Yeah, so those are all of our ideas. And the funny thing with that is, okay, again, he takes one side, I take the other side. and sometimes we both want to take the same side,
Yeah.
because the other side might be kind of a bonehead side, and so we have to do a lot of horse trading in there to figure out who's going to do what. Well, I did this one I didn't want to do. Now you have to let me do this other one that so like Buffalo
Okay.
Bill, we both wanted to do the positive side of Buffalo Bill, but I let him do the positive side. I did the negative side. So,
Ah. Okay.
but
Well,
then Billy the Kid, he had to take the side that Pat Garrett didn't actually kill Billy the Kid, that he lived on as Brushy Bill. So
oh,
there was payback there.
what I suppose doing it that way really opens your mind to looking at all sides of the story of one person, the good and the
Right.
bad
Yeah.
and the,
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, there are people out there that believe that Pat Garrett did not kill Billy the Kid; that it was all a scheme, and he got away and lived out his life as Brushy Bill down in Texas. And then
hmm,
in later years, he came forward and said, "Oh, I am Billy the Kid." So there are people that, and so when there is something like that that I may not particularly go along with, I still try to present it in the way that somebody that really is into that would, I give all the facts and I don't try to um, brush it under the table or whatever.
sure. Awesome. So what is a little bit about your research process like for these historical books? I know you've gone to visits, like for the Geronimo book, you went out and visited all the sites and all the different things and
Yeah, except for the ones down in Mexico.
yeah, right.
I didn't go down there. Um, but yeah, I think being on site really helps just as much as, like you mentioned, wearing the type of clothing people did back in the day, to actually visit the site, stand on the ground, look around, uh, look at how the topography is set up. And sometimes you get a little bit of insight as to, why people might have done things the way they did, if you can, see what it looks like. And of course, things change over time too. I mean, got a lot more, buildings probably around than back in the day, or, even vegetation changes with invasive species coming in. So you have to be careful of that. And, in looking at books and trying to go back in the time to write about a historical character, what I will do is, and everybody's got their own methods, but what I'll do is I'll try to find some of the best biographies on a particular character,
Okay.
and then I'll read the book, and then I'll what I really want to do is mine their big bibliography. So I'll go in and I'll see what were their sources, who did they use, and then I'll get, depending on what it is, then I may have to go back again and get that book, and well, I will get that book, but then I'll look and see who did they use as their sources, and keep trying to work my way back to get to the primary sources as close as I can get.
Mhm.
And so that's one way to do it. And then along with that, I mean, I just don't use that one technique. What I'll do is, uh, I'll use our friendly internet. there's a there's a great site if you're researching characters who have been talked about in the newspapers. It's called newspapers.com, and it's well worth getting the subscription for that, because they have uh, tens of thousands of newspapers, and the editions of those newspapers in there. So I found some really, I did Buffalo Bill and Wild Bill. I found some really cool stuff on them that I don't think was in any other books. So that was fun to do stuff like that. Another
Yeah.
site is ancestry.com. You might want to, you know, check and see if somebody's family has done some research on that, or what volumes might have, family volumes might be out there. And so those are two other additional sources. Going
Interesting.
into local libraries or historical uh, um, society buildings, they can have records in there of your character that you might be pursuing that might not have been put out on the internet yet or discovered by
Right.
somebody else out there. So
So then that helps make your take on it stand out from the other ones because you've got
yeah,
new, different material and
yeah. And for instance, oh, on Jesse James, Billy the Kid, and I can't remember the exact place. They robbed some bank. I think it was in Iowa, and all of the all of the historians say that it was this particular the bank owner was tied up. But when I contacted the historical society, they said no, it wasn't the bank owner. It was one of the tellers that was tied up, and the James boys had tied up, and they gave me the transcripts. They held like a grand jury on that
oh,
whole deal, and so they sent me a link to that transcript, which was totally different than all the big named
yeah, very interesting.
biographers. So that was kind of fun to do that. When you find, and I'm sure people find things wrong with what I did, and I mean, that's another thing. Like you're writing, at this moment in time. Well, who's to say, like, a month from now, somebody won't find a treasure trove of documents that would, dispel everything that I've
Yeah.
written.
It was
I,
sitting in somebody's attic or something
right.
like that.
Yeah, exactly. People think history is static, but it's not. It's dynamic. It's changing all the time as people
Yeah,
find new information.
nice.
So,
That's interesting. And I like that idea of visiting the sites too. And I just went to the Custer's Last Stand and Battlefield and all that this past few weeks ago. And it's so neat after reading all the books about it to actually have been there and now to listen to podcasts and read books about it. I can visualize the where they were at and all
oh,
the
yeah,
whole thing. It's pretty
yeah,
neat.
yeah. And one last point on this too. If anybody out there is doing some research on a character and going to write about it, um, I I've come upon historical books that don't have. I have in my in our books. I mean, we have tons of end notes. I mean, so that almost every paragraph you can find where I got the information for that. And when I come upon a history book that does not have endnotes in it, unless it's something that was written, back in the 1880s or something like that, whatever, um,
Sure.
I can't use it because, and case in point, there was a well-known author who wrote about Dodge City and said that uh, Jesse Jesse and Frank, the James boys, had come to Dodge and met Wyatt Earp there. I thought, whoa, that is pretty cool. Well, when I went to look to see where the author got his sources, there was no endnote. There was nothing to tell me where he got that information because I hadn't heard that from anybody else.
Mm,
So I emailed the author and I said, "Where can you tell me your source where you got that?" And he said, and he got back to me. He said, "Oh, I don't remember."
mm,
So I can't use that.
yeah.
It would have been a cool piece of information if it was real, but you can't put something like that in if you don't know where it came from.
Or sometimes just some authors embellish a little bit once they to fill in their gaps that they you ever find that they like that they make something up that's not really backed up.
Yeah, sometimes people will put in things like, oh, so and so rode in the town and he must have been feeling, you know, I don't know, sad or happy or whatever. Well, how do you know they felt sad or happy? Or
Yeah.
you don't know unless they actually wrote that down. I feel sad today. If you if you
Yeah.
don't have it direct from that person saying, I feel sad, you can't say they were sad when they rode in the town or whatever. So
Right.
I've seen that, and you can't put thoughts into people's heads if they didn't actually wrote about what they were thinking, or
Right. Exactly. All right. Awesome. So here, this is one of the questions that I've got a couple questions, but the first one is having to do with this next question. What are you working on now? And specifically, people are curious about your Jim Bridger book.
Yeah. So Jim Bridger, I guess I could say that's a transitional book because it's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. So yeah, Bridger, I've spent 3 years researching and writing about Jim Bridger. And it's coming out in I think August 23rd or something like that. And you can pre-order it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and those places. Really interesting. That's with Far Country Press out of Helena, Montana. Really an interesting character. The book itself, I'm really happy with what the publisher did. There's a lot of cool illustrations in there from the time of the Mountain Men. Miller's paintings are in there. Just a lot of really cool illustrations. So I was very pleased because originally they said, "Oh, find 10 illustrations to put in here." So I did. And then they went beyond. I think there's like something like 64, 65 illustrations in there. So it's really
Oh.
happy with that.
Do you have an illustrator that you like to work with, or is it all historical stuff? Or
Well, those are all historical images in there with that book.
sure.
But with these books, I got Jim Hatzel. He was
Yeah,
do you know Jim? Okay.
I
Yeah.
know of him. Yeah.
Okay. He a fellow reenactor. He was in Dances with Wolves, and that's where we met. And Jim did all the illustrations and all my books for me. I'll see if I can find one here. Just as I'm flipping, I just saw it, and now I'm not seeing. Up there it is. Okay, see if I can hold it up
Yeah.
close. I don't know. Anyway, there was a story that while it was real, Hickok had to go out and find one of the city commissioners to bring him back for a quorum, and the guy didn't want to go, so he threw him over his shoulder like a sack of wheat and hauled him into the city commission. So Jim, he did. I mean, I said, do these illustrations, and I think he does a fine job.
He does. Yeah.
He knows the clothing that people wore, the accoutrements they had, and yeah, done a
Well,
good job.
it's a nice addition. It's a nice addition to your writing to see the picture of it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Are there any new directions or topics that you're excited to explore
Well,
beyond Jim Bridger?
oh yeah, I've got let's see, 3 contracts for 3 more
Oh.
books.
Wow.
So my co-author Kellen and I we're doing a third standoff book with a new publisher, Roman and Weatherford. We're not working with Two Dot anymore. They've decided not to do Western histories anymore. So
Okay.
so Roman and Weatherford has picked up the third in our series. So we'll be doing things like the Mountain Meadow Massacre, which is like, the third rail of don't touch that. Did Brigham Young know about the massacre beforehand or not? Let's see. Battle of Washita, the Cheyenne side, the Army side on that. Trying to think what else. Oh, Geronimo did the Skull and Bones. If you haven't heard of Skull and Bones, they're a Yale secret society. Did they go out and steal the skull of Geronimo? And so we'll do that, and just a variety of Lewis, Meriwether Lewis. Did he commit suicide on the Natchez Trace, or was it murder? And they made it look like suicide. And so in fact, we started out with that one because, and I take the side that it was actually murder because all the witnesses are kind of shady characters.
Oh, sure.
So it's kind of fun to dig into that stuff. So that's
Yeah.
one contract we're working on right now. And then, as I mentioned, I kept a journal going to Antarctica, and the same people, Rowan and Weatherford, they're going to publish my Antarctic journals that I kept. And
Oh,
so those
cool.
both will be coming out in 2026, I hope. And then they want me to do a sequel to Deadwood Deadman. So I have those three things. I'm retired. I don't know what I'm doing here with.
You're getting busier and busier. I wanted to jump
I
in
know.
and ask. I wanted to ask. Craig's got some good questions here, and from the audience, I wanted to see. Craig, did you have any other questions about the Jim Bridger book that you wanted to talk about?
No, no more questions. I think
Okay.
I'll put in an order for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure before we move on to your other questions here. So
But
very
I will.
good.
I will spill a couple of beans here.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
have a whole
breaking
chapter.
news.
Have a whole chapter on the Hugh Glass
Oh,
story
yeah.
and what is known about Hugh Glass and what isn't. And a lot of historians believe that Bridger was, there were two guys left behind with Glass, and that they left him for dead. And a lot of people believe that the young kid was Jim Bridger. And the more I researched that, the more I don't think it was Bridger. And I lay out all the facts as to everything, and then let the reader make up their own mind whether they think it was Jim Bridger or not. But
Okay.
so, and then the other thing is when the Mormons claim that Bridger sold Fort Bridger to them. The more I dig into it, the more I don't believe that happened either, because Bridger never said that he sold it, but the Mormons said they paid him for it. And you find out that the people that signed the all the documentation, do some digging on those guys, and they're all shysters.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's
Okay.
all in the book.
Awesome.
But
That
Jim Bridger was a great guy. I mean, he didn't know how to read or write, but of course, he knew English, he knew French, Spanish, several Native American languages, and
uh,
he was fluent in sign language to the point where there's one instance where he was sitting down with a group of Lakota leaders for an hour, and he had them belly laughing with his sign language. So he was quite the storyteller.
good. So another question is, are there any particular events or stories from the history of the American West that you find especially compelling or that you feel are often overlooked? That's from Craig.
Yeah, I think again, the whole I I think it's weird, but I think we're getting away from our history. I mean, as a society, um, I've run into so many people that haven't even ever heard of Jim Bridger, for instance, and I think that whole fur trade era was really kind of a cool time period for the country. I mean, you think of those rendezvous, and everybody was excited for him. I mean, here comes in a caravan full of goods, and various tribes come together, and even tribes that were warring with each other would come together for the rendezvous, and they would, people would buy and sell goods, the furs for the trade goods, and they'd have horse races and, you know, archery contests and shooting matches and wrestling and, you name it, they were doing it. And people just got along. Of course, there were instances of people, shooting at each other and that sort of thing. But for all in all, they got along pretty good. And I think it was kind of a cool time period for our country during
Mhm.
that time. And I think
Sure.
it's being more and more overlooked today, except for older people like me that like to go out and reenact and go to those things. I think we just need to inspire kids to become more immersed in our history here, and what
Yeah.
people did to make this country what it is today.
Well, and you're doing that part with your books and the reenacting, and that Force Citizen event is, if you can get kids going to that and get excited about it, that's
Yeah.
good.
I
I've
got
got
my own
three more.
I got my
What's
own
that?
grandkids. I have my own grandkids excited about it. So I guess
Oh,
that's a
good. Yeah,
start.
that's something. I've got three more questions for you. We're just about on time, but one is, have you encountered any surprising or lesser known facts during your research that significantly influenced your writing?
Hmm. I don't know, but you find a lot of interesting, fun facts. Um, I can't think of anything right off the bat that's influenced my writing. But for instance, I was doing Wild Bill and Buffalo Bill. When Wild Bill was uh, traveling from Cheyenne, Wyoming to Deadwood, South Dakota, along the way, he stopped at this particular ranch where he knew the owner of the ranch, and said hello to him. And next day, he headed out, and then he sent a message back with one of the ranch hands that he had left his walking stick at the campground, and would the rancher send it on to Deadwood to him. Well, by the time Hickok got to Deadwood, he was killed there. So the rancher kept that walking stick. Well, in reading in a footnote, it said that he had turned it over to the Wyoming Historical Society. And so on a lark, I contacted them. I said, "Hey, do you happen to have a Wild Bill's walking stick?" And they said, "Sure, we've got it in the back here. It's not on display, but if you ever come to town, you're
Hmm.
sure welcome to look at it." And they gave me all the dimensions and everything else like that. So I had to put that in the book.
Oh yeah, of course. That's interesting.
Oh, and there's this is kind of fun. There's a crazy story when there was this Duke Alexis. He was a Russian Duke that came to the Great Plains on a big hunt, and Custer and Buffalo Bill went with him on the hunt. But before he got to the hunt, he was in St. Louis, and there was a reception there, and this woman fell madly in love with him, and the newspapers were she was following after him on the train and that sort of thing, trying to catch up with him,
Hmm.
and the newspapers were following her antics. I thought, well, that would be kind of a fun story to follow. Maybe turn it into a novel or something like that. But there's
Yeah.
all kinds of quirky little things when you start digging.
Yeah, you find more and more things. Okay, so is there a dream subject or story that you haven't written yet, but you would love to?
Can't
Just out there,
I
you're
don't
just
want to, I don't want to say I'm living the dream now, but I can't think of anything right now. But
yeah,
when
you because
when I
you've
see
covered
it, I'll know it. And
yeah, yeah, and
I've
you've
got
covered
plenty
so
to do.
many interesting stories already.
I've got plenty to do right now. So
Yeah, your plate is kind of full. All right, so lastly, what advice would you give for aspiring writers or historians that are watching or listening to this later or now?
yeah, I think the main thing is, well, yeah, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Really,
Hmm.
I'm serious. But the main thing you got to do is stick with it. You need to you you got to treat it as a job. I mean, if you're gonna write, you write. You just kind of say, and things are always getting in the way. It's like, oh yeah, oh I get today's trash day. I need to take the trash out. Oh, I get to the writing later, or I need to mow the lawn, or I mean, things you got to do. Yeah, you got to do that stuff, but you gotta just sit down and do it. And you got to develop a thick skin because you're going to get a lot of people telling you, forget it. The first, if I still got time, the first article I did with True West magazine, I wrote it. I thought it was great. The editor sent it back to me, and it was marked up all over the place. I mean, everything seemed like it wasn't a red mark. I mean, it was everywhere. And then, I was kind of ticked off a little bit, but then I thought, wait a minute, if he didn't like it, he would have just thrown it in the trash can. He wouldn't have spent all this time marking it up. So at that point, then I realized, okay, yeah, this is fine. And from then on, I'll take the criticism that I get because it'll just make it a better document, a better
Yeah,
book.
Cool. All right, Ray or Craig, do you have any questions that you wanted to ask before we say goodnight here? Or
No more questions. This has been very interesting. It's fascinating. I've learned so much just from this. This is yeah, well thought out interview. I really enjoyed this and encourage you to both to do this again.
yeah, thank you. This is our third one, and the ones that I've been doing since that's brought up. My next one I'm working on for next month is with Paul Horsted from South Dakota. If you're familiar with him, are you familiar with that? He's a photographer that he finds photographs that were taken during the Custer expedition in South Dakota, and he finds those exact spots where the picture was taken and takes a today version and then talks about the whole Custer thing. So if you follow him on Facebook, he does this neat thing where he'll layer the pictures over each other and do Photoshop and kind of shows you the old version and then colors in what it looks like today.
He gave me a 2-day tour one time. So
cool. Yeah, you know him really well then.
yeah, it'll be a great podcast. Yeah.
Good. Well, if you guys are interested in getting books, should they go to billmarkley.com? Is that the best place?
Did Ray have a question?
Oh, Ray, did you have anything?
No, I guess I didn't have any questions, but I voiced too that this was a very fun and informative podcast and really enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll try and keep them going and find more interesting people to talk to. Oh, thank Bill. But yeah, you guys, Bill, is that the best website they can get your book set is directly from your site or billmarkley.com?
Yeah, and that'll direct them to, Barnes and Noble and Amazon
sure.
has them. So, yeah.
And you have books all over in bookstores and
yeah, they can all be ordered through a local bookstore.
I think I've seen your books at the Wall Drug Bookstore, which is a really good, real good bookstore, history stuff, and
yeah,
I'm sure you've favorites. Yeah, and you're also doing circuits. Are you still doing that? Some of these events like the Sisseton thing and the Cheyenne Frontier Days or some kind of things like that, or
yeah, the next one will be the South Dakota Book Festival in the end of September in Spearfish.
Okay.
South Dakota. So
Very nice. All right. Well, I think that is all I had for the night. So I want to thank you, Bill, for your great presentation and very interesting topic. Yeah, it's been fun.
Thanks everybody for hanging in with this.
Yeah. So I will at some point I'll edit this video. I don't know if I can edit. I'll try and cut out our little special guest that we had there at one point, but
I don't know. I think you should leave that in. That was
well, because we were still talking over it, but that was interesting. But I'll put that on my YouTube channel with the other ones, and then I also usually take the audio file and put that just on my podcast channel. So if you want to just listen to it in the car or whatever. So a couple different ways to re-listen. So
okay.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Have a good evening.
All right.